into the office in a timely manner. Thank you again for working hard for doing all of those.
Appreciate it.
I did send, did anybody look over the draft notes to see whether we looked at it again, to see if there was anything that needed to be updated?
Just one question. So Bertie, there was discussion about reducing a raise, not COLA, a raise to 2% from the 3% that was plugged in. And what was the savings that you said we had from 1% raise?
Well, it's for every 0.5%, it's 35K. So, yeah, so from it, I said 2.5 would save 35K. There was discussion about reducing it to 2, which would save another 35K.
Okay, thank you.
And one thing is, and this will be, I know it's because I'm used to working with scattered branches. Okay? The department heads are not part of it.
Yes, they are.
To a point.
See, this is where everything gets green.
That's, okay, so there was a discussion about that last night. The contract, somebody was supposed to pull up the contract. My recollection was that it was they would be included at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, but now somebody's saying shall be. I said, shall was never in there.
That's
Shall
a
be
big difference.
considered a COLA, so if they don't call it a COLA,
I quickly ran through it. About the COLAs, Laurie May shall be considered a COLA. Laurie Radiola, her contract that I received today is $72,000, which doesn't include any raises in the past 2 years. But it's 90 in the budget, over 90.
that's because she got a 25% raise.
Well, that's not the contract that was sent today.
I don't know, did you redo,
Today.
did she get a new contract?
I don't know, apparently not, because I didn't get a copy of it today. And they requested it last night for all the current copies of contracts.
Was the contract that you received, the
So I,
contract that was still showing as in effect till either 12/31/24 or at some point in
in
20.
effect from 22 for 3 years.
Okay.
So she got increases, but the contract wasn't updated, which doesn't necessarily have to be.
There's usually an amendment done.
Yeah.
And it's signed.
There's some kind of notification tag.
Well, you just did Mike Cludier's, what does his say?
Mike Cludius was the old budget. The old contract.
Didn't it have, mention of, if,
It's only until Mike Cludius contract that I received today, current contracts that I received today, is expires next year.
you didn't exactly get the new contracts.
This is what I requested last night, didn't I?
But to the
Okay,
bigger
anyway,
point, they
to the bigger point.
shall receive a COLA.
No, shall be considered for COLA, shall be considered for COLA. L. Bumps doesn't mention anything about COLA or raises. All right. Rachel Malinowski, eligible for COLA. Eligible.
If
Dan
not,
Bemis shall be considered for COLA. All right.
They should all be the same.
Mike Cludia shall be considered for COLA. Rick Donovan shall be eligible for COLA. So does it say anywhere there that they shall receive COLA? All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and I actually talked to Mike, before he sat down with you to negotiate, you know, his contract. And he told me what he was gonna ask for. I said, are you putting in there that you do want the COLA? Because I thought what he asked for was really reasonable. You know, it's a very moderate raise, you know,
The contract's not in effect.
till March 16th.
It's not been signed.
Well, you guys must have voted on it.
We did, it's not signed.
Oh, God.
It's not a signed contract.
By which side or both?
Both. I've been on Mike
I'm not good at your,
to get the town administrator to give him a contract and he hasn't got one.
So the point is
Right.
there's no obligation for a COLA increase.
In 7 cases.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, based on the information I received
To
today.
tell you the truth, if that's not gonna save that much, you know, maybe $5,000.
but in some ways, it's not like last year where there were 13 budgets presented in 8 different manners. That if, and I'm not saying, I'm just gonna use 2 examples. One is, everybody who's on that list should at least fall under the same category. Or if the town administrator, whomever that might be, was in some different category because they're supervisory over the supervisors, that would be one thing. But other than that, all those other ones to me certainly sound like they should have the same language. Okay,
Yeah.
for their protection, for the town's protection, okay? And just the idea of, you know, straight line thinking and being able to work this, you shouldn't have that small a group of people with which sounded like 3 or 4 different options. When they're basically, if they were a department, they're,
But they all say the same thing.
There's 2 different options.
Thanks.
It's considered and eligible. And one didn't have
that
any.
there's nothing
And
solid.
one didn't have any consideration at all.
And
Planning board used an old format.
Well, just tell me. What I got less than last night, what I received today, that's all. That's all I can say. I received it today, it should have been the most current.
there's also some overlap where there's some people that may be entitled to step increase as well as any potential other COLA or whatever label is being applied to it.
COLAs, if they're given their across the board. And one of the things about the pay plan, because I read so much about these other towns, that when I did the pay plan that I put in it, that if a COLA is given, the entire pay plan goes up that amount. I mean, you know, it's a spreadsheet, so it doesn't get outdated in 2 years. And that's,
Mhm.
other towns were saying, oh, blah, 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 blah. So if you keep the pay plan current with the you know, so it's accurate. And you don't have to redo it every 3 years. Yeah, it was like, I read about all these towns, and I'm going, you've got them on, you know, they're in Excel, just do a formula. Increase
Right.
everything by the code, so it's like, this is now what this stage is.
Question, so we have some employees, so we talk about equality and fairness. We have some employees that are gonna get step increases plus a COLA, if it's approved. And then we have other employees that are just getting a COLA.
Not too many.
There's no pay for performance.
That's what the step is. They're supposed to get reviewed. And then the department head decides if they get nothing, a half step, step and a half, 2 steps.
So is it fair
It's-
to assume that the majority of employees are in the pay plan and will we get a step increase?
Probably.
Not all, I think there were something like 22, but when they added the figures together, they didn't add up to 22.
Yeah, there's, the problem with, you know, this town is that, you know, it's like, it's not big enough to carry that. So employees that aren't doing their jobs don't last long.
No, understood, but what I'm trying to figure out is if you don't do a COLA, everybody would still get, I assume, a reasonable pay increase.
Not all.
Because
Not
it's-
all.
No,
No, they're
There's
given,
22 that wouldn't, roughly
22 would.
22 would.
That was the figure I was getting, but when it broken down by department, it didn't add up to 22, so I don't understand.
But there's some part-timers that aren't on the pay.
part-timers aren't on,
Okay.
they aren't.
And some of the departments are pretty well stocked.
Full-time positions are. The number doesn't pan out, as Bob was saying.
Yeah,
So there was
like
something that was
30-some
out, just for
employees.
the sake of continuing the conversation. The only employees that would not get a raise if there was no COLA would be the part-timers.
Well, we take them out.
Part-timers,
The employees that did not warrant from the department head, an appraisal, some sort of step increase.
But then that would be a lack of performance.
yeah, so the step plan isn't automatic. It's basically based on performance.
So is the incremental steps roughly 5% increase
No.
in each step?
It's, I thought it was around 3.5.
Okay.
And most of the employees who qualify to fall under the pay plan do achieve some increase each year. A great majority of them, if I remember the last time we discussed it.
Yeah,
So.
And that's
if
part of
we
it,
didn't
you know,
have a pay plan and we didn't have COLA, and we were sitting here saying, we want to keep our employees, and we want to give them an increase over what they were making last year, what would that number be? 4%, 5%? If everybody was treated equally, just hypothetically. What's a fair?
No,
number?
the
Everybody
pay
was
plan,
treated equally, then I've worked under this pay plan before. It was contractual. The younger employees came in with no time at all. They received incremental raises, fairly large, for 5 years, till they were fully trained. Then they were at the top of their scale. They were making the same. You and I, you had 10 years, I had 5 years, I'd be making an identical pay. During the course of that, there would be contract raises negotiated every 3 years. And a COLA written contract language, which didn't mean it went up the cost of living. Sometimes the contract said that the cost of living went up above 3%. You would receive 50% of anything that it went up beyond that. So if it went up 4%.
wait a minute, Bob, yeah, but this has nothing to do with, this, yeah.
This is equity, though.
And-
To bring
Yeah, I'm
people's
just trying to
it's
arrive
fine.
at whether or not COLA can be eliminated.
So the
and
pay
still
plan,
not penalize the.
no, it's up to the, it would sum. The part-timers wouldn't get raises. And the part-timers are really important to this town, because they save us a ton of money.
But under this, the part-timers will look for COLA.
If they've been here long enough, yeah.
What's long enough?
I think it's, they have to have been here a year
Year.
when it goes into effect.
It used to be a year for anybody to get a COLA increase, even if they were full.
It still is, I believe.
So I think, to pull that in, we're talking about the value of each half percentage, and where do we want to be on recommendation towards that?
Well, yeah, I think it's budget, and the number was saying, you know, it's like, looking at it until I could see. The number I came up with, can't get there.
To get a number out, got slower than yours.
Well, it's like just doing the cuts, because of the ambulance. I mean, that added 40 grand.
And that's with walking out at 85.
Right.
That still hasn't been negotiated with.
Understood. Okay.
You know, there's another placeholder.
Yes, right. But we know that someone's gonna sit at that place. Question's gonna be how much they eat, but someone's gonna take that place. It's not gonna be 46.5.
No.
This upcoming,
No, I don't think that's so loud.
so.
Roberta, how much did you come up with in savings last time? Oh,
Well, might just redid it because, I was looking at 5,650. But there's a lot of things, I mean, that they have to agree with it. Actually, I probably could come up with more, but if I got it down to 5,688. Then I went back through.
Oh, you're damn close to my figure. Keep going, 5,688.
Two
Less than
fifty-nine.
$20 away.
259.
that was your number?
Less than $20 different.
What do you have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You've got
5,6.
Yeah, well, I was at 5,650, but with the ambulance, and that's with, that was with the 2%. But there's a lot of questions, anyway.
You had a question when we talked about the COLA, I sent your hand up.
There's some question about what the dollar amount is, and it's 67,000, 3% in the proposed budget.
It can't be, because Lori May told me, if we cut it 0.5%, it'd be 35,000, including
I had written that same thing down last week. that-
including wages, benefits, and retirement.
I'm not saying you can't add, subtract, and divide, I'm saying
She
that,
gave me the number.
well, she gave all of us the 0.5% is 35K number.
It doesn't make sense.
I just asked her,
Well,
I'm looking for her tab from the computer.
yeah, she told me that, if we went to 2.5, it would save 35,000.
and then we did kick around the idea of then 2 would have been 70,000, which would have been the amount we were projecting we might be near for the ambulance as well as a couple of the other things. We're looking for something for that. At least that is how I remember that discussion going.
67,922 is the number she gave me right out of her,
For all 3%.
for the whole 3% across, she just removed it from the spreadsheet. And we did the add subtract.
67,000, if you got rid of 3%.
Across the whole board.
It can't be.
Okay.
It just, it can't be.
The step increase is about 60, 2.5%.
And we can keep the figures to that, but we have to have a target to work towards and get to. I have my target, Berta had her target. Does anybody else have a target figure to work towards?
You know what, oh no, that doesn't include, what did you say, Tom?
67 was the total.
That's without retirement.
67,922 is what she told me.
That's without the retirement, social security tax, Medicare tax. And it doesn't include the overtime. Ooh, no, can't. So, yeah,
She took the total wages and just, the number, took 3% off.
The wages is.
wages is 2,300,000
It's the lion's share.
plus
I just want to pass
103,000.
information on that
Yeah, well, she didn't do the total.
just talk to our accountant, and maybe we need. I trust you.
306,557 plus overtime, 103,982. This is just the
So,
wages.
this Second meeting, can we deal with the meeting here? Tina, have you had come up with any figure that was a target for you to get to? You do. And you,
I do. It's not close to yours.
who worked out?
We have worked that out.
I'm probably
You look at a floor, I look at a ceiling. Okay? You know, a budget that doesn't pass is not a good budget proposal. Or even maybe it is a good budget proposal, but it just didn't work.
But it didn't pass.
But it didn't pass, and therefore we're riding around with Red's garbage truck. Okay?
That was one way.
It could not be higher, even in my mind, than 5,750.
So we're
But I was taking in, okay, at that point, when I was playing with it last night, I look at it slightly different. To me, things that you put out there, that you support, are still mentally part of the budget in my mind. And when I heard us discussing the CIP pieces last night, and I got thrown off a little bit at the end, because what I thought I heard, and any of you can convince me I did not hear it the same way. So we were at 5, forget about what article it's going to. We were at 550 as a presentation from CIP, correct? And the discussion was that we may have, and even I don't want to aim too high, so I'm going to say 250 to 275 as surplus funds at the end of this year. The thought was maybe to use some of that to take care of the CIP. I didn't hear that as a suggestion for the future. Even if you did that with 250, to me, that other 250 or 300 goes to where I'm going for the top figure. And I'm not sure we can get to my number with that or your number. Okay, if you don't include it, because I sit here and say, I think that we have made progress the last 3 years. I would not have said that the 3 years or the 5 years before that. No, we're not making, I hate we talk, oh, making up the lost time. No, we're not. We're trying to keep up with where it is now and see what we can do about triaging some of the wounds that are still out there. But I always go back to, if it doesn't pass, best intentions, you're still in a default.
So thinking along those same lines, including the CIP information that we got yesterday. And it's a stretch. I don't think we'd ever get there, but I think we've got to shave 350 off of the 5,829.
Yeah, I think we have to be looking at 200 of the people.
So we're gonna go poison pill, which is okay too. All right? If you make it so that there's no real advantage to voting for the default. I mean, yes, you have 200,000 more. But if you're gonna talk about being, what you're saying is roughly 350,000 off of where, okay?
And that's a lot. I don't think we could get there, but I think.
Well,
that's the
Jenny,
number.
you'd be the person to show me you can get there, okay? But we're gonna be taking bone along with it, okay? The occasional extra poundage around the middle. What bone are we gonna,
If we ever come up with $250,000 left over at the end of the year, which I don't think we
I heard the number 300, 275, 300 kicked around last night, Mr. Hamilton. Was my non-effective hearing aid not working or what?
will. You heard the opinion, not from me though.
Well, Robert, if I had heard it from you, I would have known that the angels were coming.
We
Somebody
would have written it down, Dan.
damn straight, I would have made you sign. Okay, 225. Okay, is 225 a realistic number there?
I'm not sure at this point in time, towards the end of the year. Really, the budget is based closely and guided until the end of the year. And I did mention last night that we paid out almost $3 million to the county and $1.2 million to the school.
But the 1.2 to the school wasn't an extraordinary amount,
No,
okay? The 3 million to the county,
that's expected, not extraordinary.
okay? So I'm not sure the relevance.
Yeah.
And that was what I didn't understand.
And what we're doing is we're getting to the end of the year and paying off the bills that we need to pay off by the end of the year. We're still at the mercy of the weather. As Roberta pointed out last night also. We're at the mercy of the weather because the storm costs us. Oh,
It can. It can do that every year.
and I'm sure it did last night. I'm sure it might a little bit tonight. I'm driving up the road, it looks like, well, it could be sand and salt.
Not me it's using product, I know.
I know. I mean,
Well, it's not just the
Yeah.
product, it's that they have to run the routes again.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, to put this stuff down, you're gonna pay the employees and you're gonna pay the diesel and you're gonna maintain the vehicles too, which are somehow prone to break down once in a while.
Well, you know, the work they do rubs them hard.
So I'm not sure, Dan.
Well, I'm not sure either. I wouldn't be picking 300 up, okay? I'm trying to get to a number that makes the other number potentially it.
okay, so what you don't think about is demographics in this town have changed.
In what direction?
All directions.
Yes, all directions,
Yep.
up as well.
No,
No, they,
What's the average for a new house being built right
I'm not, you,
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people that have moved in, from out of state. They're, much more prone to go to pass. And it depends on whether this committee and the Board of Selectmen vote to recommend, because that's what people go by. They say, I don't know anything about it. These people know, and we trust their judgment. It's imperative, if you want something to pass, that it's, the BAC is in agreement and the BOS is in agreement, and then it will pass.
now?
Yes.
I'm waiting for your point.
That's why I'm saying the CIP thing, you know, everything is passed for the last 3 years, well, actually, for many years.
I can't remember the last CIP one that didn't go.
It's been years
It
now
has.
that everything is passed. And it's because if people, you know, they understand, we have been extremely frugal in this town for years. When you can't cut the operating budget, it's down to bone. So it's strictly the wages and benefits, which a lot we don't have control over. You know, the retirement is obscene. It just, that is what it is.
but you gotta realize too, CIP requests in the last several years have been very low because we
They were
had,
too low.
they were very low because we had $600,000 thrown at us from the federal government. And we used that to offset the request from the CIP.
No, I don't, the CIP was,
We bought a
Slow.
truck with it.
I know, but the CIP was slow
We got
in
2 septic systems.
getting on the
done.
bandwagon that we got to say. You know, I was really, I couldn't believe that they weren't putting money away, regardless of, you know, the federal funds.
But you know.
We still have 7 buildings in town. The highway still has, 29 pieces of equipment. Fire still has 13. I mean, they have to be replaced occasionally. And you gotta save for them. Or pay through the nose. We've been lucky with leases. Interest rates were very, very low. Not true anymore.
I think saving ahead of time is the only logical way to approach those things.
Yeah, even if you don't have all of it, you gotta have most of it.
Right.
Because for the older people in town, they probably remember back 15 years or so, we did save a ton of money and a lot of it was just thrown out the window.
They did, you know what, I don't hear again about they saved money, because I went through from like 1990, I started, when I went 2000, and all of that money that kept going into the capital reserve funds was spent at the same time, and it came out of the unassigned fund balance. It was not from taxation, $1 million. That means that they were raising way too much money in taxes over those years, because every town meeting, it was like 500,000 that was taken out of the unassigned fund balance and then spent on equipment, same night. And when I started adding it up, I just was appalled. It was not taxation. It was taxation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, because I kept wondering what it was.
Yeah, they collected too much in taxes and they had all this surplus. I kept reading it going, what? Yeah, it was some interesting reading.
So circling back around to tonight and early February. Again, I'll go back to a number that, when I went back, I kept going for, okay, what are want tos and not have tos for the things that we either have to provide or the people? And Lord knows, we're all pretty sharp and tight about not having extra personnel. One of the things that has made the budget go up and has been a choice, it's been a directive, at least of the people within the sound of my voice, is not being the training ground for every other town. And I'm not just talking about police, but it's the one that people see most. Okay? We have a more experienced and therefore hopefully more valuable set of employees right now. And therefore, they would like to be compensated as a more valuable set. With that, you're right, Roberta. The retirement numbers, particularly for the two, I understand why they're that way, but every time we do it, okay, and we look when we do bring somebody on, there are two groups that have a particularly different retirement structure, which leaps ahead of everyone else's. And I think that with the exclusion of the maybe 5 or 6 people who aren't in here, who are usually with us on Wednesdays or Thursdays, there's probably not 15 people in town who take that into account when we have the discussion. As you said last night, when it came up talking about the,
Danny, if you
Potential
joined us at the
positions, yeah.
meeting, they wouldn't believe you anyway. They would think you had wrong figures.
well, I mean, last night we even discussed ourselves between,
But you do have the right figures.
I have the right figures, and that sometimes causes me to be in worse trouble. Minimum we figured was 85. I know Tommy said 100,000 last night, because depending on what was going to be done, and the chief had somebody to bring in, it might be somebody who was there for close to the entire 12 months. And if they were an experienced officer bringing them in, minimum would be 85. We'd make something back with them not doing the training, but they'd come in at a higher number. That's more than any other single increase I think we're talking about. And that's not even in what we're talking about yet. I mean, where is this 250? If we were talking about 50,000, we'd already be out having coffee right now. Okay? We're talking about if we're going to get down to a number that we can all live with. And I am flexible about moving down out of the state. There's no easy. There really isn't.
So,
I wanna
should
have
we
the
actually
argument.
this, or are we just gonna beat everything to death? The
We
minutes
beat
were
it together
discussed.
for 3 months.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, I'm not beating it to death tonight.
All right, since you mentioned the minutes, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of last meeting.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Were there any nays or abstentions? It's like, I'm so lost.
we have a budget in front of us of $5,829,509.
Yeah, so,
Can anybody live with that?
I think even if we recommended it, it wouldn't. I understand what you're saying, you're not wrong, but just saying it's such a big gap between the default and the proposed, that even if people are inclined to follow our recommendation, I think-
400 is not.
I think too many would fall. I think too many people would fall.
The 70,000, if we cut 1% COLA, on the raise,
So I don't know
that
what,
wasn't included in here, that wasn't taken out.
so if you take last year's wage line and the overtime line, yeah, her numbers don't make sense. Just the, it's about 100,000 for the, but I can't calculate the,
If you take the 2,303,860,
plus the 103, that 104. I did this twice.
times 3%,
Yeah, come,
72,000.
yeah. That's not,
3% of total.
right, so,
Not
yeah, her
counting,
numbers
so
are,
that 67 is probably a good calculation.
but that doesn't include the retirement
Or taxes.
or taxes.
So you'd probably shave 100.
It's 100,000, probably around 100,000 for the 3%. And that maybe is where the 35, she may have thought 1% when I asked her about.
Then if you take, we're going full circle here, because if you take the COLA away, you want to do something for those that aren't going to get increased. for the
Okay,
pension
so-
policies.
The 35 was probably 1%, not 0.5%. Because that makes sense. 35, a percent. Nah, it's gotta be more than that.
Yeah, big one.
Well, it's 105,000. Yeah, because of the retirement, fluctuates, from different departments.
If you use the 35, okay,
Up for a percent, not a
percent, okay? Whether it floats to 38, 32, whatever it is, at least it's something as we try and move those two.
So, but what I came up with this time, because the numbers were different, as I explained about code enforcement and assessing, it's just, that's doubling, no, it's tripling. It's doubling what was being paid when the position covered a lot more duties at 20,000.
So those figures were not adjusted in this budget yet.
Not what I suggested, no, they
You
didn't.
need to go down to 15.
Yeah. So that's 3,000. I suggest taking 500 out of staff development and 900 out of mileage for code enforcement because they're gonna be using the truck. I mean, if they're using the rec truck, they're not gonna be getting paid mileage. So that should have been adjusted too when that was discussed. The executive secretary, I never, found out about whether it was part-time, and if it is, that's what it needs to be budgeted for, which would be a huge savings. Staff development out of town office,
Will be a savings not only from hourly wages, but from time. Social Security
it's at
and-
least 20,000.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
and there's no reason that she's not on health insurance,
Right, and
that's
that's.
till 23, I think.
Well, it's older
It's
than
26
And
Still
Yeah.
still 26.
Oh my God, I thought it was 23.
No, no, it moved to 26 a few years ago.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So,
Whether it's ridiculous or not, it is.
Yeah,
so I think that we need to codify our recommendation that we affirm that that position, which is part-time today, is remaining part-time. And that's our recommendation, and we remove,
It's about 20,000.
because we're paying for a full boat health plan in the budget that we're not actually providing to the person. So let's take that out of the budget.
I didn't add that in.
But we went through these numbers before, and that was what we determined, is we're paying for one more health plan than what's actually being used by people.
Yeah,
So that number has to come out, because we're not taking it away from anybody, we're taking it away from the budget, because it shouldn't be.
yeah, so the town, this staff development should be cut by 500 for the town office. Mileage cut by 350. The assessing turned out to be different, it's only 4,000 because that was changed to 19. Yes.
The mileage was cut by 350.
No, that's what I suggested,
250.
by. I went back through what it had been. Previously, look what it's, they spent, $70 was spent. So why keep budgeting 500? It's on page 3. So I suggested it go to 150, staff development, that, keep it at 2,000, which is still high, I think. I'm all for training, but, staff development is Lori May in that department, or that's what it should be, in the town office. I think. Yeah, the health insurance is, 38,000.
I do remember we had that discussion as to how we got to that, but the piece, forgive me, about whether or not somebody could be on a parent's plan, you have no idea if 4 weeks from now, maybe a different person in that job. We should be looking at that one as,
You budget what you have,
And
not dreaming.
no, we would remove it.
the thing is, it's, even if it's 4 weeks from now, a different person, it's still a part-time position that doesn't get the health plan.
I'm agreeing with you on that.
That's
What I'm saying is we
move those
remove it for
numbers.
that reason, not for who's in the position.
Right, well, you budget for, what you have.
Yes.
I mean, it's a part-time.
And it does seem as though that one has been over budget.
Yes.
Yeah. The other, I didn't get to talk to Rachel last night, I was gonna ask her about the overtime. What she said last night,
That was the sheet she gave me when I asked her about it last night.
but what she said last night was she thinks that she's going to get an experienced,
She did say that,
yeah.
absolutely.
So if you've got 10, you shouldn't have the overtime because you've got somebody, you may not have 3 people on, but you'll have 2 on.
So if we just filled the 9th position, which is another position that we didn't have filled.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Forget the 10th, put that aside.
yeah, no, I understand the
But the 9th
vacations,
officer
but,
run around
right,
by one officer, and we should have cut the overtime budget right there. Any additional officer that comes in should fill the gap with the overtime.
I don't think
It
it's quite
should,
that.
but one of the points she brought out is, she's now got 9 people that have now been pushed up well over 30 hours of training that they have to do, which is outside of their regular work shift. She still has people that have to look, make all the court appearances, all of that stuff. But she did say that the state increasing mandatory time for training, we now have 9 people that have 32 plus some other, that used to be a lot lower number of training. So that's one of the.
I have no idea what this is, it's great.
And was not part of our discussion on it, that with the added officer, that should reduce some of the overtime.
It should, because you've got,
And I thought we had talked about recommending that line just from 80 back to 60.
yeah, just flat, correct.
Okay.
That's,
And I thought that was a recommendation that we all
Yeah, I'm not trying to cut out overtime.
agreed. I understand that.
altogether.
No, it's just
Right.
flat. So the other thing is that's why, Lauren May were there, we have numbers. The revolving fund, I think should pay, for the sports coordinator. It pays for most of it. Cause it is a full-time position. So there's 12,000 that's still in there, but if that line would have to have money in it. You can't zero it out because it isn't position. She did not pull Halloween out after she said, you can't use town money if you're gonna use it and then put it in the revolving fund.
That was a small thing, that was what?
$300.
Yeah,
Hey,
I was
you
gonna- I
know
was gonna
what?
say-
Low hanging fruit. The other thing that didn't get pulled from the budget, which was discussed, was Concom clerk position, because it's only Al doing work on, that he does specific, he's not doing the minutes, and it's still budgeted for $2,600. So, that should be, half at least comes out of there. So, I think Tina's right, it's just that if they want to preserve, their employees' raises, they're gonna have to, find ways to cut.
Correct. We mentioned the 3% off the department heads. That was an estimated savings of 5.
Maybe, yeah, well, if you think about it, you've got 5 department heads,
7 figured in here.
7, oh, right,
Well,
Dan,
those
yeah.
include Elbow, Laurie, May,
Al's not eligible,
Dan Venus, Mike Cloutier, Rick Donovan. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 department heads and Laurie, 5, 6.
Well, the one that just got a 25% raise, I don't think they need another 2% or whatever on top. I don't remember putting 25% extra for any role into the budget last year when we planned it out. So I'm just saying, I think that for the duration of the term, that bump should be adequate, because that's a significant bump.
Just rounding, if there's 7 of them and they made $100,000 each, you took 3% away, that's 21 grand.
well, it's
I'm just saying,
Okay.
just for purposes of
Yeah, sure.
rounding.
but how can that doesn't add up somehow? Because I'm figuring 800,000,
So 3% would be 24 grand.
24,000
Mhm.
plus the benefits. I mean, that's a huge piece of the increase. That doesn't calculate.
It's 3%.
No, but think of the overall, we said is around 100,000,
Yeah.
25% of it is for the department heads.
That sounds
Something's wrong. Don't you agree something's wrong?
I do, and I'm wondering if it's one number that's skewing part of it. That we were just discussing for one of the positions, but Tina, I trust you on numbers, but it sounds glitchy. Okay,
No, she's right. I mean, that's what it calculates out to.
is 100?
No, 100, not including retirement.
70-something thousand. So we added another 28 for taxes and,
So it's about 125 probably.
Yeah.
For the,
I'm sorry, I
That's-
thought you were only talking about the heads.
okay, no, it's 25 for the heads.
25 for the heads.
yes.
I thought you were saying 100 for the heads,
No.
that's what.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, I said, how can it be, okay, without retirement or anything else, just, if you just take last year's salaries and wages and overtime, it comes out times 3% comes out to around 100,000 just in wages, not benefits. Now we're saying about 25 of that is for the department heads. It doesn't add,
Starting to sound like a school budget.
You know, when I.
it just doesn't make sense. Huh?
That was it, Robert, making sure I was still listening.
Yeah. Does that make sense to you? It just doesn't.
That sounds disproportionate.
Yes.
It does.
Don, you had a question or a statement?
How many like employees did you say? Well, 6 contracted people.
No, it's 7.
Laurie May, Laurie Reddell, 2, Al Bump, and for him is 3, Rachel Malinowski is 4, Dan Bean is 5, 6, Rick Donovan is 7.
But actually, you know what? Al hasn't been here a year and will not have been here a year by the time the raises are given. And so he's probably in this number. But
So
it
if you
just,
took COLA away from them, would they, other than the ones that just renegotiate their contract, would they get any other increase or that?
no, their contract is the same every year. Yeah. We agree to this X number of dollars in compensation a year for the next 3 years.
Contract is written for 3 years, they negotiate their salary for the next 3 years.
They can ask for, they can say, they can negotiate. They can say, this is what I want. And you negotiate. But it's generally a number per year.
Are we gonna lose anybody that we don't want to lose?
Well, they never used to get them until the last, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
They didn't get COLAs.
You know,
3 years.
I don't think you would.
No. I don't either.
Let me go back to the police department again, and there was a thing about shift differentials and stuff like that.
Yeah, she wants to do that.
It's 15 grand extra right here too.
Yep.
Well, just out of the blue, that signs from a zero point to
My
15.
comments to that,
Right.
that could be a place to go. I would encourage the board of selectmen to incorporate it into the policy book next year. That was what we done, what applies to all employees in the town. Not just one department.
So in other words, if you did, police department should do it for all of them.
In whatever the criteria is. In the
That's
budget,
highway too. Yeah.
in library, like do evening hours,
Yeah, you know what?
whatever the criteria is, that applies to everyone.
So my 2 cents on the shift differential for PD, my brother was in LAPD, when you go to work and you're junior, you work nights. You take the job knowing that you're gonna be working the midnight shift for a while. It's, that's when you get broken in. It's just part of the job. So I have a little
I
difficulty
think to
with
your
it.
point though, I think it's a fair suggestion.
Oh, I do
You know,
too, but I'm
look at
I'm
In the
thinking,
whole, not just one department.
I believe that her thought is, the way she's balancing it is she cut the part-time budget by 15 grand, to put 15 grand for,
she doesn't have any part-timers.
she's moving the money. I'm just looking at what's here on the page.
No, I know it, but it's like,
Right,
look at what was spent in the part-time budget. It's like,
5,000 so far.
yeah. I think it's just, Sepulveda, right? Is he still coming down and working?
I think occasionally, it's becoming very occasionally, I haven't seen Jeff.
It's a pretty rare to see that.
Yeah, well, he's got a full-time and a half job.
Yeah, but yeah,
He works as a nurse, they don't let him go home.
The paper that's in front of me with the overtime, the math that's on this little sheet is $116,000, but the assets in the budget is $80,000.
because of having the other officer was supposed to do some reduction.
Should.
As I said, you still, the more people you have, the more vacations you have to cover. But in
It's not
Bridget's
pure
case-
gain, you're right.
But in Ringe's case, because, we want 2 people on at a time, and the 10th officer is gonna be pretty much the 3rd man on shifts. So if you're back down to 2 to cover vacations, it's not the end of the world, and it's not. When, Todd did the presentation on getting the grant for the 9th officer, when we did the grant, and his chart, pie chart, 9 officers did not fully man. There was a sliver, not a lot of hours, but that it didn't cover. So the 10th officer covered, and then it was supposed to cover vacations, sick, and so that there was enough manpower that you didn't have to pay as much overtime. That was the whole point.
One factor that I always remember any of the chiefs bringing up that I think sometimes we blow past is the time they have to go to court.
Not much. Unless we change prosecutors.
I can't believe you stole my line, because I was gonna say, every time I hear about the prosecutor situation, I walk out more confused than I walked in. I'm not asking you to clarify it now, but I'm just telling you, it feels like a swamp.
No, like in Dende, yeah, it's like,
I'm not faulting anyone, I'm just saying, gosh, we're not following that. I'm hoping that when we get the golden ticket at the end and we find out what's there, not just financially, but stability wise, it's a good thing for us. And I'm gonna trust in the people involved.
The police department budget has increased $320,000.
It's adding in the operation, adding in what should have been added that hadn't been added.
Oh, that's a big,
But they didn't fully fund the roles in the budget, so a big jump in the police budget itself is actually putting the money in for the people that they actually have. So that's a big chunk that's.
How much did that add for this year? That was like $85,000.
That's 85 of the increase for this year.
It's like 3, and I thought it wasn't funded.
they were partially funded, so 85 to 175,000 increase is those 2 positions being fully funded. So the increase is $90,000 basically.
But to Dan's point, he's right about the prosecutors program. We really took a hard one on that there.
Seems that way.
mhm.
Actually,
In a position that, when you think about it, there's no output, there's no production, there's no anything. We can't really get a firm handle on. If you arrest 10 people, how many are prosecuted successfully?
Period. And then we'll move to successful.
All right? All right. Problem is, all we hear is jibber jabber about, well, we have to go back to court 3 or 4 times because they want to prolong the case, they need additional time, so we have to go back 4 times. But the question is not answered. You arrest 10 people, how many are prosecuted successfully? That's what a prosecutor's success rate would be, right?
Or even
Successful
how many court
prosecution.
appearances did they make? Would be a good number to start with.
Claims keeper that, well, Dan got arrested, but he had his lawyer thrown on 5 times, so they had to show up 5 times for the same case.
Which we do, which is not unfortunately just an analogy. Okay, we hear about that happening repeatedly, and that it's a tactic. But our person has to be there each time.
But that still didn't answer the question. How many did you, out of the 10, did you successfully prosecute? Didn't answer the question asked. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't
he's
know.
thrown Rachel under the bus, it's like, I'm surprised that she, hasn't said, let's do our own.
Other departments have their offices do the prosecution. I don't think it's an ideal situation.
No,
Other states have the district attorneys do the prosecution. You know that very well.
okay, so what are we gonna
So
do?
getting back to our budget,
All right, so
So anyway, I'm
again, it seems like we're all in agreement that the overtime budget should stay flat for the police department, and not the increase. So that pulls 20 out.
I think shift differential should come on. And we should examine it as a whole in fairness for everybody.
are we doing that because we want to implement it across multiple departments, or are we doing that to bring down the dollars for police? I'm okay with either. Okay, thank you. Because the only part where I sit there and say, okay, if we implement it for one department, and I'm gonna go back to the first night we started talking about the COLAs, and I said, no matter what happens, as soon as people say that we've got 3% out there as a target, I'm getting a 3% raise. And I've tried every time we've had a public discussion not to say, it didn't say that.
Not
Okay?
to exceed.
In,
we never.
that don't confuse the truth with the report. Now,
True.
in this same case, if we're saying that, okay, then we're committing a different group to an action. Or we're suggesting that group needs to take that action. Because,
Should take.
Should examine.
well, I don't know if should examine would make, if I run the other side of this, should examine doesn't tell me that it's gonna get that part of it.
But I think we have to, the board of selectmen have to look at this as a whole.
Yes. I just want to say, just, there's an expectation with some of the rules. I've had family that work for highway departments, family that work for police and fire departments. There's an expectation about night shift if you're gonna be a plow driver. There's an expectation about working nights if the tones go off, you're gonna jump in your car and run where the accident scene is in the fire. I mean, my dad was a callman for decades, and that was just part and parcel of what you did, was you responded when the call was, so there was an expectation that was gonna be on nights and weekends and holidays.
Well, and with the
And
highway
they were.
department, they get overtime.
So it's back to Roberta's point.
It's already factored in.
It's part of your job when you're hired on the job. Your shift, you're hired, and you're working 4 to midnight.
And there is a shift differential already in place
So.
of 75 cents.
Yes.
I
What,
thought there was,
no, the chief did state that repeatedly,
but she
Shouldn't
wants
stay.
more.
that she wanted to put it
She
to
wanted to-
$1 an hour for second shift and $2 an hour for third shift.
Some people actually prefer.
Some do
shifts.
prefer the other shift, and they see that as a benefit for themselves.
Yeah,
That part's, I feel, out of our,
so if it's already 75,
You know, you brought this
Right.
to the board
Right.
of selectmen.
And she's breaking it
They
out
need
for
to
the
study
first
it,
time.
and so be in the budget this year, because you brought it late. And, you
it
know,
almost sounds like someone who'd ask, what didn't make the budget and what did we be prepared for next year? I hope somebody starts doing that someday. I enjoy that. I can understand not doing it for that reason, but we should be looking about it. Casey, I'm really glad you brought it up, that if we're doing it, if we're investigating it for one.
senior dinner deliveries, it was voluntary. It wasn't supposed to be paid.
What was?
What's that?
Senior dinner deliveries
What are you reading?
for overtime.
I saw that.
That was supposed to be voluntary.
And trunk or treats on there.
Yeah, and 4 of them are down there for 4 hours.
Something with the election, I can't figure out the math.
Well, the elections, that's,
We had several elections and several officers throughout the course of the
That should be
day of the
deep.
election.
That should be detailed.
But they don't get.
no, the town would have to pay them, but that's 12 times 2 times 2. No, there's 2 people there, but
It should be 24.
yeah,
And I heard 48.
yeah.
So what number are we
Literally 4
trying?
hours. Drug take-back days, don't do them. You've got a bin that's there all the time. Yeah, so,
But there is a disconnect between that number, 116,000 and 80 here.
Bill, you know I say this often enough that when Ritter and I are totally alike, that's when you should all agree. At a certain point, we could be doing this tomorrow night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
I
okay?
mean,
Like it or not, we need to give them a percentage or a number.
And I think that this has already been decided to control that sheet out, put it to the side.
that would,
So anyway, if we watch out, I'm confused as to the time figure on cutting 1% off the 3% placeholder.
I know.
I was assuming it was $70,000 if we cut 1%, so there was 70 there, there's 20 in the overtime, there's 90,000 there, there's 15 from shipper for. It's all 105. There's money that were taken out of assessing and code enforcement, there was probably another 5,000 or so. So we're up to 110 cut. I mean, we're working, we are making progress on this. And I don't see where we're cut out all at all. And if, as Stan pointed out, the figure was mentioned as being a surplus at the end of the year, 300, still not buying that. Then that project was over budgeting by 300,000 a year.
Well, that's my problem with school. It's the same,
One-
different, it
one
all
of
stays
many.
here,
one
it
of
stays
many
here,
issues.
but yeah.
Yeah, but the difference between that and schools is anything that we over budget.
It stays here,
It stays in the town,
yeah. It doesn't,
100%,
it doesn't go to Jaffrey.
not 50%.
Okay, I've kind of lost track of what we're doing.
Can you go back to your COLA? What did you think?
Well, from what I was told, at 35%, he thought it'd be 70, so did I.
We cut 1%, that's 70,000.
Right.
Yeah, from 3 to 2, and obviously, the numbers are all wrong.
So if you take,
Oh, yeah,
Salaries,
I forgot the other
wages, and
5,000 of the department head requests for COLA, the consideration of
That's 24,000.
eligible.
That's why I'm saying these numbers.
wait, if you take 3%,
Wait a minute, there it is. 35 for 1%, another 20, probably 25, with the department heads not getting it. 60,
no, it's not making any sense, because if you take the original budget for 2024, salaries and wages, which department heads are doing, and overtime, and you multiply that times 3%,
I know it.
that's $72,000.
Well,
If you add another 30% for benefits, that's another 25.
well, I figured it's 100,000.
That includes your department heads, and that's eliminating.
That's why I'm saying the numbers don't make sense, because if it's $70,000 for wages, right?
Salaries
3%,
and wages,
just wages and overtime,
salaries, wages, and overtime,
it's about 70.
72 grand.
24 of that is department heads. That's why I'm saying, it can't be right.
And these are the numbers it has to be right.
No, the numbers that she said it was.
So, well, so for purposes of budgeting, if you cut, put 3% COLA completely, there's 100.
Well, yeah.
So you're back to your 35 grand per 1%
That's for everybody.
for,
But if it's 35 for 1%, 20, the numbers just don't make sense. I know that we're looking at the 23 or 24, 2.4 million. But it just, the percentage for department heads compared to employee, and that doesn't include step wages.
So at this point
Okay,
in
at
time,
this point, I don't think we're, okay. Department heads, they have the contracts, they're getting what their contract says they're gonna get. So I'm hearing, sounds like we're recommending that we not give additional to department heads just by fiat. They haven't specifically requested, we're not putting it above and beyond what the contract is. But the staff, we're still recommending that they get an adjustment of a COLA or equivalent above and beyond what the staff are. But not
3%.
not 3%, and we're not doing it for department heads, it's their own contract.
Here's a suggestion. We come up with a number where we would like the budget, or a range,
Right.
and,
so we've got a range.
no, give them that, and then everybody can tell me where their suggestions are. I can type up, here's some suggested areas. It's up to the board of selectmen,
In the department head.
Mhm.
but here's some suggested cuts.
I mean, we've been through.
And
this.
it doesn't get to the 650 or whatever it is, but it's going in the right direction.
I misspoke on something earlier. Shift
did?
differential. Yes, yes.
Just make sure.
And I admit when I, the shift differential is $2 an hour for weeknights and $3 an hour for weekends. Not what I had thought and remembered, but I went back going, something was just gnawing at me. I found my notes for when that was done. So weekday third shift, $2 an hour. Weekend, $3.
Weekends, nights.
Well, yes, and I'm not gonna say whether that's 2 or 3 evenings that qualify as that, that's without having it in front of me, but since I had made a mistake and I wanted to,
I didn't recall the $3 a week.
I didn't sure you, I didn't,
This is a huge shift to range of.
just-
75 cents something, $1, $2, and $3.
She said it's been a dozen years since it was.
since it was adjusted. I did hear the term dozen.
Oh, but a 25% increase in it, bringing up this, or a 30% increase and bringing it up to $1. All shifts. She doesn't have, I didn't see.
Nighttime, yeah.
And somebody says all shifts to me, I mean,
You're right. Misspoke.
no,
Night shift.
I just don't need either one of us getting nailed on saying, well, you guys said all always, none never, tough words.
You see my pen on paper?
Let me put it to you this way, there's
Yeah.
75 cents an hour for shift differential before, how come it's not in the budget?
Because
It's not
It's
budgeted.
in, that's right.
She said
It was just in
not-
wages.
it wasn't wages, and she wanted to make it show as an individual line item.
Did she take it out of the wage line? Probably not.
I think that if we treat the budget dollars for the police department wages as one single pool, it's easier to manage it that way and let her figure out how much of it is gonna go towards the differential and how much she wants to say the differential is.
Well, she
We can-
doesn't-
We can make the recommendation,
Department heads don't calculate the wages, Lori does.
but I'm just,
Let me get that to us.
we'll give them the
What we're
number.
doing is we have department heads acting as union stewards and negotiators
Oh,
for their employees. All right? Sure, that's what I'm saying. And department heads are coming forward and suggesting increases for their employees and working on their behalf, as I would have done as a union representative,
yes, you would have. Probably.
but I was not a department.
You were not a department head or member of management.
And I had paid doing that, separate.
Yes. So,
So, it's just,
5782072 is what's on the printed paper, I believe.
What?
Go back, hold on, I'm sorry, that was my last page.
5829509.
5825009.
We should be careful about all the cuts we make, because every time we make cuts in this budget, the bottom line goes up.
I know, I know.
Somehow.
It's my-
Yeah, somehow, all the cuts we made, and was suggesting,
Well, no, they didn't go to the,
the budget went up $15,000.
well, no, but those were, we talked about, they did not go to,
They weren't subtracted from the budget.
well, they weren't, yeah, they weren't presented yet.
Yeah, true.
Because I thought we were gonna have to do that, that's why I,
I
went
mean,
through it.
there have been cuts made at the BLS meetings, and for all the cuts we made, we have 15.
Right, a lot,
Now we have a $15,000 increase.
well, that's.
So be
and
careful
that's,
how much we cut, because we don't know how much this.
Yeah, I was really confused, and then I realized that the, 85 for the ambulance was in there, and I finally went, oh.
Is it email?
Yeah.
It is.
And it's
Well, that's
because the
why
line's up by 38,500.
Okay.
Okay,
What page is that on?
that's on Bob.
Yep.
That was on the sheet that we got. I don't know what page it's on there.
I want to see it in here though, Danny.
Okay.
I believe you're,
Well, no, only because those two numbers add up together. That was my concern as well.
It is on page,
9.
Yes.
how come it's not right by mutual aid?
It's a.
I would have liked to-
Wage benefits.
very good. Yeah, it is there, Dan.
Yeah. Okay, so
It's after animal control.
as we look at this, it's a question for some of us as to how low will some go and how high will others go. Okay, and even I know 5.8 plus is not working. Okay, and that's without any adjustments, because there may still be a few more traps out there before we get to the fifth category. I would not tell you where we could make legitimate, but I think the target needs to be at either 5,650 or 5,670.
Yeah, I think I said 650.
That's 560 is a good number, it's a 5% increase.
What is it?
5%.
5637 is the 5%.
So I went up that little bit.
I came down.
What a shock. What a shock that we met someone in the team.
Yeah,
John?
I would caution you to use your percentage increase over last year's budget. Because you're arguing against the default budget, not last year's budget. So your baseline is your default budget.
no, it isn't, it's last year's budget. It's always been last year's budget.
It's all how you put it out
Right, but people always want to see how much it increased over the previous year's budget.
Yeah,
there. I
I,
don't disagree, I'm just saying, you got a
It's-
little bit of misnomer in
No,
there.
it's both.
I don't think there's a misnomer. I think there's multiple ways to look at it and present it, and whichever one you prefer, not you. Okay, someone's gonna be diametrically opposed.
And we do know, Dan, that figures don't lie,
No, they don't.
but,
They may misspeak from time to time.
but. Yeah.
I will say that whether it's 567, whatever that is, okay, yes, we're pushing it back to the selectmen, we're pushing it back to the department heads. This is not, despite some of it's not an egregious budget because almost, or at least the great majority of the things that went up, we're not controlling the figures,
Exactly.
okay? Which is fine, because we know that.
Well, and that's why I almost think, pulling out the big increases that we have to explain to the public that, it's like we're at the mercy. So in order to take care of our employees, then calculate out and try to keep it within, under the 5% range or, in that. But I mean, we've got almost $100,000 that we have no control over.
Big. Okay, and that's before 38,500 for the ambulance service. A negotiated down number of having it go up 38,500 is more than 1% of whatever we want to call that increase.
And they wanted $100,000.
No, they want 125,000.
They wanted another.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Sorry, even that one gets mixed my throat. So,
They wanted to triple it and we negotiated to double it.
oh, what good laughs and laughs.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm just still angry that,
that was in an effort to try and get the service that we wanted.
Yeah.
I still think that if we hear, does Jaffrey do it as a separate warrant article?
No, they do not. They used to, but they do not.
Yeah, well, I know they used to do separate warrant articles forever.
They do not do that anymore.
Oh,
For fear that it wouldn't get passed.
they need to be SB two.
And then
Yeah.
the fear
They
was.
do.
That would put things even.
if they
Yeah.
continued-
Oh, we could go back. Much preferred.
They must have got beat down on a couple of their warrant articles before they took that out, because they were severely afraid that the ambulance wouldn't get voted in. Then,
Did you see what
then,
Peterburg's is?
then what do you know?
Have you looked at what Peterburg's ambulance is gonna be? This is chump change. For what they've got on, I think it's like $300 and some thousand.
But we should have that longer discussion. But not today.
No, just,
Um,
yeah, this is chump change compared to, because Peterborough funds it and then they get reimbursed.
Right. They get some back.
That's why they're charging $1,000 a run.
Okay. Phil,
So is our recommendation the number and some suggestions to get?
Okay.
We've got
Correct.
a ton of suggestions.
Right.
They haven't gotten them yet, Bob, unless they
No,
want the
no.
minutes.
No, we have a ton of suggestions.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, they haven't gotten them. It's not like,
No, we have a lot of them.
no, to be fair, it's not like they got them and they said it's more.
It sounds like that we are coming towards a gross number and then we're gonna wait for that.
Here's some suggestions.
Yeah.
We'll let you come up with a workshop on Monday.
Two,
Then you have the
two that,
suggestions to bring with you Monday.
sure, you can send them to me. You've got emails and stuff.
I'll
yeah,
take
well, they ought to come to me so I can put them
Yeah,
in
I'll
the
take
minutes.
all of the suggestions.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, and then send the list.
Do you want me to bring the suggestions, Bill, or do you want to present it on Wednesday night? I mean, we do have all the suggestions in print, but maybe the chair should present it rather than myself. I don't know.
Well, they should.
You guys are working this on Monday.
Yeah.
You need to take what comes out of tonight's meeting into your meeting Monday.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
If you have the minutes for Roberta,
all the suggestions.
And the report Wednesday, when asked, the selectmen implemented some, here were some others that maybe they did not. And that way, that will all be in that record as well.
Yeah, because I mean, there were a lot of cuts that, came from this committee that they already put in. The planning board cut, here's two other little things. It's little with the rec department, the library phone bill, $4,000.
Oh, wacky.
So, I don't understand why it wasn't looked into. They're getting a generator. They don't need copper lines anymore. Copper was so, when the power goes out, the phones still work. You're not gonna have a phone for 3 minutes while the generator starts.
And the copper was for the elevator.
You don't need it anymore if they're gonna have power.
Also,
Yeah.
the police department said the same thing, and that they needed copper lines in case the power went out. But they also have a generator at the police.
That's all bullshit now, because I know that I had, one line changed over to fiber, back feeding through the copper, the alarm system. I have an ADNOC, it works, I tested it, I made sure before they pulled.
Yeah, it doesn't work if the power goes out, you drop your telephone, totally,
Right,
through the fiber. But if you have a battery backup, it still works, or a generator turned on, it still works.
right, the generator, if your internet works, so your telephone's working. So that's a big deal.
My internet router is
Well,
plugged into a UPS that I bought for $125. I want something that's line conditioning because it's also protecting my other electronics. That shows like 7 hours time remaining when I am in a power outage, when I've got my computer shut off, and it's just the router. And the router has attached to it a $30 ATA that plugs in to the RJ11 jack and back feeds all the jacks in the house. So my regular landline phone is actually my free Google Voice phone number. And that's, like I say, I'm back feeding my house on the RJ11.
Yeah, we might have a
So
small
Wait,
glitch
works.
at these buildings. By the time power goes on, till the generator goes on, it's the way the phone company does it. If the power goes down, it goes to battery immediately, battery.
Right,
Or within seconds, the generator turns on, and goes off of the batteries. So
It's
the
the same
battery,
situation.
battery is only for a matter of seconds.
right.
No, it's a situation you can fix before the budget season is over.
it's a recommendation that
It's a
we
recommendation.
look at getting rid of the expensive copper.
Fantastic. So if we do that,
It's my list.
Please.
we could estimate what we think the savings.
Well, I did-
Really large.
What I'm saying, if it's 4,000 there, even if it was 2,000 took out there, and next year, once you would run it for a bit, you knew what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the other one, Roberta, you were gonna say?
Well, it was rec department, their phone bill is minuscule compared to the library.
The library's high and the police department was high, I know that,
Yeah, I can understand one of them, not the other.
very high, yeah.
Okay,
Roberta, when did we get 1 gig of service of internet for the library? Phil might know that. We
Yes.
did. We got it for all departments except, we didn't get it for school.
No, it was everything
Everything
except
but
the
the
school.
school, okay. So they basically have free internet service, up to 1 gig of service, which is
more than they need in this life.
way more.
No, we also
They
did
only
the
use-
historical society, but we didn't get to reduce what we give them.
We haven't increased them either in 10
But-
years.
That's not true, we went from 4,000 to 4,100, okay?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Megabucks over there.
But fuel oil, it went up, but the last few years, although we thought it was going to spike, it didn't.
We lucked out again this year with the cost that the town was paying for.
I know, and I pay $279, which is really,
So I'm gonna sound the clarion call once again.
what's the number? As I said, I was at 5,650 and then the, ambulance got kicked in.
which would put it to just under 5.7.
5,688, but then I calculated out, I wanted it within around 200 of defaults.
5,619 is 5%.
Yeah, I think that might be tough. The reason I went with the 5,650, well, actually, when I was doing all the cuts, my suggestions, I got there without the ambulance increase, but I was looking at the default, trying to stay, within 200 of that. Because I think that's.
If it's too much of a difference, it's too much of an impact.
Yeah, I think 200 is a safe.
Yes.
So 5,638.
I thought I just heard 5,688, is that what I heard you say?
That was what, after the.
No, I was just making sure that Kim was listening to me at the other end.
Yeah, so she just said, that would be 5,638. 200 from default. I think that's a target. That's why I went with 6,550.
The-
37. It's still not as tight as we were years ago.
Yeah, Bobby, that's because they're rookies, yeah. No, it's,
Question on, if I may, and I might be sorry. I'm asking this.
Good for you.
When we talk about building maintenance and copper wires and phones and this and that and everything, generators, what's the deal with meeting house?
The meeting house?
But that's a semi-complicated thing, but.
No, that's I have a real issue with it.
Like, so what is it? We don't
It's a
have
town
separate
building.
budget for it, so we don't know what it costs us to have it.
Well, it's included in the town
Own
building.
Mhm.
We somewhat leased the sanctuary to the church
And they use the whole.
For 100 years.
too.
for $1, right? At least it's $1 for 100 years or something.
No, there wasn't any monetary money in it.
But anyway, they're supposed to recompense us 50% of certain things, excluding certain things. We own the steeple, they don't own the steeple.
The clock or the town,
So we pay the insurance, we pay the heat, we pay the utilities. we
They
pay
split the
maintenance.
heat, they split, the electricity, and they are supposed to pay half of all the maintenance on the entire building, except the clock
Yeah.
and and what's called the meeting house, which is downstairs, the big room downstairs. They were supposed to, it was half and half, but they actually have about 85% of the building, and it was never really cheap. Because all we really have is the meeting house room.
What we had,
Anyway, they haven't paid, they don't have the money. And I said, they can't pay, they can't stay, because we can't subsidize church.
Do we have any idea what it costs us to maintain that building?
Oh, it's included in the budget, but I'm sure Mike can give you numbers on what it is, because he has it for every building.
we also, part of the maintenance is funds that we collect for maintenance of the building. It's thrown into a fund. But most of the improvement that we did this last time.
Grants,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
75% of it.
Yeah,
Great.
and they don't have their 12.5% left.
thank you.
It's
That
not
was
as
a
good.
good, that would be an interesting legitimate question.
Very soon, Roberta, that won't be an issue.
As their situation becomes potentially more difficult.
Precarious.
That's an excellent vocab word for that choice. We may be having a different discussion in the next 3, 5, 7 years, maybe even sooner.
So,
I think it's been on the precipice for probably 10 to 15 years.
we have service there every other week.
Correct, they split with Akron and Congregational. I
Okay,
think we
so,
delved into the church side of church and stayed enough at the moment. So what was that number we were talking about?
5638.
I could have sworn I heard a higher number at some point.
that was
But
me.
no, you do it with a smile, which makes it all the way.
I'm going with Casey at 5,600, so.
No, he didn't say that. He said 5.6 what?
5.6,
Oh,
He did.
yeah,
5,600.
yep, an even number.
that can't, you just can't get there.
Phil's
There'd be no
Phil's
raises.
coming out.
There'd be no raises.
5637. You went 5638. You got 55.6. Danny had 6,500.
I know, I hit 56,
Oh,
56,
I thought you had 6,500,000.
no,
56 what?
5650.
That's where, yeah.
They were
That's
gonna
what
say
we're talking about.
5.6 something.
Yeah,
We're within 50.
we're all within a negligible amount.
Range of 5619 to 5650.
Yes. Which is not a surprise.
Is that our not to exceed number now?
Yes.
5650 is the not to exceed, huh?
Casey.
So, yeah, 5619.
I think we're all voted here, Casey.
Okay, so I put it 5619, 5650.
There's just a lot of things that are talked about, and trying to come up with a solid number right there. So,
And
I
you
think
point,
the worst part is the stuff that we had no control over, you know, that just throws a wrench
so
in.
we can sit down and change these numbers, we'll have a workshop, now where are we at now?
Right, and I think we're still talking about, somebody's gotta find out for sure about the calculations of the COLA percentage and the carry on with it, because whatever it is, it has to be correct. And the problem is that each percentage it's compounding, so charting, it's an asymptotic curve. So that makes it hard to try to do it when everybody's thinking linear and not on the curve. So,
So the wages and benefits,
Well, there was still one more issue with the part-time
and there's a,
secretary.
right, there's a,
that's over $20,000.
And healthcare and all that. That has to
yeah,
be
it's
mentioned.
closer to 25.
Well, we don't know what the wage, that's just the, health insurance and retirement.
would anybody care to guess, because I stopped counting at a certain point tonight, the phrase either exactly or close up, that's not the right number, we need that number came up, okay? So part of this is it's not worrying about whether we're at 5.19 or 5.6 or 5.65. Is gonna depend on that Lori being there in that seat or in that seat and going, okay, this is where we are with it. Somewhere inside there, I think, giving this is the range we're expecting it to come in. We have suggestions, but this is your job, okay? To both groups, the department heads and the selectmen, okay? That to garner the full support of this group, our expectation is that the pre-default budget will fall into this range. And if that is the case, and that's what we're thinking, I will make that motion to recommend that to the select.
So here's where things get really nutty. Salaries and wages include the prosecutor. It's under salary.
It's a
Yes,
separate line item.
There is,
It's a separate line item, but it's part of the total calculation on it. Just-
Okay,
yeah.
wait a minute.
I'm just
This is
trying to
where I'm
figure
lost
out-
with it, okay? Because I thought it was not. I thought it was a lump sum looking at it, because I
It's-
did not see a corresponding retirement and social security and all.
It is under wages and benefits. It's not under operating. It's in the wages and benefits.
So where are the benefits?
It's in wages.
That's a good question.
We don't know.
What are the benefits?
I don't know.
Thank you, I wasn't asking that
It's
rhetorically.
not,
No COLA.
it's not in the operating budget. which you would think it would be.
As a fixed cost.
As a fixed cost for a service.
Yeah, it's really, it should be in,
A wage line.
it should be in the operating line.
Oh, sorry, yes.
It
Shouldn't
depends
be
on
up there.
a W-2 or a 1099.
He gets a 1099, but she works hourly, and he pay her, or do we pay her?
We pay her.
We pay her hourly?
Thought it was fixed amount, flat fixed amount. It was negotiated.
Both of them are Social Security, Medicare, that's it, they're not included from my understanding in any of the wage.
No,
Kohler,
no, but when you look down at the summary of salaries and wages, they're in the wages line. So is that in that 2.3 million from last year? That's what I'm saying, it's just,
yes,
it's really hard to,
It's in there, then.
it is.
Right. But for purposes of calculating COLA, it's such a small dollar amount, it's not gonna make that much
But it's the principle.
It's not just, that's not the only place that it is, though.
Well, see, in taxes,
Wages that aren't subject to.
Pardon?
COLA's $230,000 in wages aren't subject to COLA.
Well, yeah, there's other places that it's the same thing, that there's numbers in there.
so back to Dan's point, Lori can calculate that quickly.
Or explain where she has whatever that piece may be.
Okay,
or not.
I just thought about that and I went, wait a minute, it isn't.
Well, it's definitely something to get clarified
It's very confusing.
at best.
Okay, so what are we gonna give give as a number? We should actually give a number, not to exceed, instead of this range. So, I know some of you aren't happy with the 5650. I just think, if it's 200,000 under, or you just want to go with the 200,000 under default, over default.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
excuse me.
No, I'm with you.
It's gonna be a long meeting.
Thanks,
So
Bob.
get 200 under control.
Yeah.
But I see default, here's 200.
Dan, did you have a motion that relates to this?
I did. My motion was a target, okay, between 5619 and 5650.
I will second this motion.
We should leave some flexibility to the people who are even more deeply involved. And I will just say, I don't think any one of us is in love with this, but let's see where it goes.
Instead of have we discussion on this motion.
I'm not through with the range, but
I'm not either,
I just don't have that flat figure.
not to exceed, like not to exceed 3%.
That went well.
No,
I would put it.
that was a really good idea.
Well,
Yeah, I would put the not to exceed the 5650. Okay. And I'm not, depending on what the choices are, I'm not gonna be upset if it comes down with good reason. That to me is a figure that, I look at it this way. I go to the same thing I used for 25 years on the other side of the street. I tell them, if you can't convince me, I'm on your side. How can you expect me to go convince somebody else? And if it is over that number, it would be at best stress, if not. Even with our newer demographic and clientele, some of whom are inclined to say, I got a balloon mortgage and it went up. Okay. That may be too high for them. Some people will be too high no matter what we put out. I think that, looking at the things we could not control, and there's very little of truly discretionary increase that's in here. And the things that there are mostly small incremental pieces, except for one question why the health is extra position for benefits. I think that gives all the sides something to get at. So if you, I would change it to make it, if you wanted a target number, a number not to exceed 5,650,000.
That may go through, might not go through, I have no idea, but that, we should at least have a figure, set figure, and then I can go with that.
It's a goal.
That's $12, 12 more than you wanted, and 13 more than you wanted, and 15 more than we wanted, but that's okay.
You want to make it possible? It's not going to break my heart. Okay? I'm just saying that to get to that, we're no longer going to be talking about things where we go, okay, well, it's taking them back to the level they were at last year. Okay, and it's not going to be solved by mileage, and it's not going to be solved by workshops. It's going to have to be something else that is going to make a noise when it drops.
Well, you can't find $100,000 in one spot. You find it sometimes $100 at a time.
And don't say paving. Just don't say paving.
I would, if I see the paving go first, I'm going to go back to my conspiracy theory. Probably still support it, but I'm going to bitch it.
No, that can't be done. That's the only thing that everybody in the town gets is their roads. Just,
So do we have a number?
well, I get.
If 5,625 puts it closer to the mean of what everybody was going for, I can live with that. I prefer to see it at 5,650, but it also gives it a little bit more, either closer to, or is that just under 5%?
5,650 is just over.
Just a little
It's over 5%.
Fine, 5,625. So that it's under 5% as a.
So are you withdrawing your motion?
I'm withdrawing the
And
motion.
Are you withdrawing
Okay.
your second? Okay.
And I'll change that to an amount not to exceed 5,625,000.
Also, this will be like a 4.99%.
I thought it was 997, but sure.
I'll second that motion.
5,625,0.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
Don't ask for any.
I think we've had enough discussion on it before the motion.
The minutes are really gonna be short tonight
Okay.
because it was just too many, there was too much.
We lived on tangents tonight.
I know it. I
I,
kept going,
Okay.
what are we gonna write down?
Well, you've got a list of targets where people can look for.
So do we have to vote? I'll
So-
vote aye on the 5,6,520. 5,6.
5,625,000.
There was a motion made and seconded.
There is.
I'll vote aye on.
Don't vote all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Be written, so let it be done.
I guess
No.
no opposed or abstains.
No.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll do a list and I'll get it out so that people add to it. So that we have, because this was too,
Just BCC it to everybody, that's all.
yeah.
Yeah, any additions that you get after, forward them to me.
Right, I'll put in, what I'll try to do is get the minutes done but do the list separately and then put it in the minutes and then get them all.
So if there's any more addition to the list, just like.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
And we all could have been home watching the Lions-Packers game, as well as other things on the other nights. I do appreciate everybody.
Oh, I was gonna ask, we're probably gonna have maybe one more meeting. 6 o'clock's too early. 7 o'clock's too late. What was 6:30?
I said 7 because I work until 7. I ducked,
Oh.
I ducked out early yesterday to go. Hope that nobody noticed.
I knew there was some other, I mean, I can almost always get back into town by 6.
6 is too early. It's like.
Our next meeting is with the Board of Selectmen on the 11th, right?
Correct.
Correct. No, I meant this one.
Right.
When
Just
is our next
I
meeting?
believe
We have to
that-
have one to vote on the warrant.
Right.
I believe the 11th was agreed upon to have a meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's, all right, let's look at the calendar, please. And
I was there, and sometimes what I hear is about the sins.
I'm sure Ronnie would happily testify to that.
He doesn't hear anything I say anymore.
So, warrant article, yeah, because we have to vote on the warrant articles after they're done, and that's usually not until January.
So I'm looking December 18th, it says discuss other warrant articles, BOS finalize the budget and warrant articles for public hearing. So are we gonna meet after the budget's finalized, so then we can say whether we approve or?
So the warrant is not finalized until I think it's the
Right.
23rd this year. So they are, the warrant articles aren't gonna be done.
No, it says discuss other warrant articles. And then after the semicolon, it says BOS finalize the budget and warrant articles for public hearing. So,
Oh, but no, wait a minute,
So-
the budget, the warrant doesn't have to be done until January
that's what.
27th.
I'm focused on the BOS finalize the budget piece.
Yeah.
Sentence. So if that's when it's finalized. Do we want to meet again before they finalize it, or wait until they finalize it and then we can vote on it to see whether we do or don't recommend it?
Can I make a suggestion?
You're not listening. So we have to vote on all the warrant articles that have money in them. The budget is one of them. It's like,
Yeah,
there's no reason to meet for the budget
right.
and have to meet for the warrant articles.
And I was going more with the idea of, let's let the selectmen get past Monday. Okay?
Yep.
See what we have coming out of that. Then we can determine when and or if we need to plug other meetings. Okay? Because now we're to that part where it was always, it depended on if the selectmen finished their work according to the regular schedule, whether we decided we needed anything.
So timing wise, we're supposed to make the recommendations to the selectmen.
On the 4th.
Actually, I think it's still the 11th.
It's
The date's
been changed.
I'm just reading the calendar.
So, and then the budget, they finalize the budget maybe the next week, maybe next week. And then it's Christmas, so we're not doing anything for a few weeks anyway.
So. All right.
Nothing the warrant articles is set up, that's all we should need.
Yeah, so
Sounds
did
like
you
it's
see
gonna
the
be-
email on the solar thing?
Most recent one, coming out of the corner office? Yeah,
Somebody needs to learn to read RSA's.
according to Carl, about that you need to read it and set the RSA once again to 2 RSAs.
I said it to Lori, I said, she obviously doesn't know the law changed in 2020.
Leave it close to water, but you can't make them read RSAs.
Anyway. Yeah, I mean, the law, the statute, it couldn't be any more clear.
Do we have any other business to come before us this evening, sir?
If we had to,
Yes, we
did
do.
we want to try to?
Merry Christmas to all, if I don't see you before then.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will, but I'm sure I
So we don't want to put a January meeting on the calendar at this point.
I think we have to.
What was the date that the Lawrence was, Lawrence supposed to be done?
Warrant doesn't have to be done till the end of January.
It says the.
But warrant articles need
Selectmen
to be submitted by a certain.
Budget.
Right.
I think it's January, what, 14th or something?
It's usually somewhere in there.
10th is the last day for petition warrant articles to the OS for petition bond
That's
articles.
bonds.
The 14th, last day for petition warrant articles without bond. January 15th, budget bond public hearing. 27th, deadline to post town warrant, and then deliberative session is on Saturday, February 1st.
So we're gonna meet around the 27th, so January. Ironic, after it.
Yeah, well, we should meet before,
Yeah.
probably the week of the 20th. And then if anything changes at deliberative, we need to have, we need to have it posted not only as deliberative session, but as a meeting of the BAC. So that hopefully everybody will be there, and if there's any changes at deliberative, we can vote on recommending.
After the meeting.
Yeah,
Do we know of any petition articles that will be $10 involved?
that would be.
And we have whispers.
Oh, yeah, the 10th officer,
Well, I got these sense that article may not be a petition. It may be a petition.
I think
I'm
she
not
wants
sure
the
either.
selectmen to do it.
Yes. I got that distinct impression as well.
Okay,
So they're out the
So
room.
what I'm looking at, January 15th.
Kind of went over like my balloon, I thought.
Over, again, January 15th is the budget bond public hearing selectmen's meeting. Wednesday, the 15th.
As far as the petition warrant articles, if it involved any money, I haven't heard.
The week of the 20th, rather than, I was gonna say, should we meet on the 16th, the day after?
No, I'm really sick of having consecutive meetings.
Okay.
I had one last, Tuesday night also. And I have the meat raffle on Saturday. Yeah. That's why I said the 20th, because,
That week, so.
yeah, the week of the 20th
Thursday, the 23rd then?
That sounds good.
is, when's Concom meet? They meet,
It's on Monday, so.
they do a Monday and then they do a Thursday, I think. But it's not, oh, wait a minute. So next meeting is,
Conservation Commission is on the 23rd at 6:30.
thank you, I thought it was. That's okay, we can meet in the planning office.
We've done that before.
Yeah, we can meet
Many
in the planning
times.
office.
You can change it.
Huh?
You can
Yeah.
change it.
Just meet in the planning office.
Went downstairs in the dungeon.
We have.
Down there.
Did that.
It's cold down.
So the
Get my jacket on.
20
Get my jacket on.
Gets the meeting over. quick.
It does.
Eastern time.
Eastern time.
Well, the next meeting is on the 11th, actually.
So when are we gonna do ours? January what?
23rd,
23rd.
23rd.
7:00?
Yep.
Here.
yeah.
Or, we could start at 6:30 and by the time till it's be done. There's another option. 7:00, the 23rd sounds fine. If we can stop at 10, we could probably get this thing done. Never behind your back, lady. Always make sure you're within earshot.
9:07.
I hit that wall a bit ago, sorry.
I have to start my car. My girlfriend always says, why don't you park in a garage? And I go, because it's a long walk and I can't start it ahead of time.
Have a good evening, Tom.
Is that the one you sent me?
Thanks, Dan.
No.
Oh.
See you for some quality time next week. How's that sound?
What's that?